How's that, Doris?
Well, in the mix, this can
Or you need to decide?
Mark said it's better over in
You
the
can speak
corner.
for you and for the fire company.
I think that's as far as it's gonna go.
For the fire
Just
department.
make sure it's
Got it.
live on.
All right, Charlie, thank you. Got it. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
What did I change?
Oh, leave it open.
You'll know.
Oh, what did I do? All right, are we live?
We're live,
Doris,
yes.
all right, we are live? Yes, absolutely. You got room right there? All right, thank you, Justin. Justin, I've never seen you in a coat and tie. Look at you, looking all fancy. You dressed up. Yeah.
It's sure here.
You can need those bands around your arm like the accountants have. You know? All right, can everybody stand for the pledge, please? Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Take your seats. Apologies that executive session went a little longer. My apologies. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to open up the work session of the Village Board of Cornwall and Hudson for December 9th, 2024. May I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Jimmy, you're going to keep notes for us on that? Ms. Doris? Yeah, Doris.
Here she go.
She only came to get us started on here. So, I've asked Justin to come in. Justin is our accountant, auditor, handles our year-end compilations and audits, depending on what the year is. The village board has kind of been read into that one sheet you gave me, because everything in this beautiful compilation, I have you boiled down for me in one sheet, and I shared those numbers and your presentation on that. But I thought you could give maybe a 15, 20-minute overview and allow the village board to speak. I'm gonna have to jump out for something at 8 o'clock. The deputy mayor is going to take over for me. I'll be back in around 8:15 or 8:20. Justin, you'll be long gone.
Right, I'll be home watching.
Yes, so I'm gonna move some things around, and I'm gonna add that after Justin Wood is done, I'm gonna move up the initial budget discussions, which we are going to enter into tonight, which is gonna be very short, but give a brief overview on where the treasurer and I have crunched some numbers, looked at some things. Next week, I have meetings with each of the department heads to talk about their individual budgets. Once I get a sense on what the board is willing to do in regards to taxes and fund balance, we will go from there. And I think some of this, your presentation is going to segue nicely into that. So without further ado, Justin, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, and everybody else. Thank you for having me. And before I get started, I want to thank Megan and Doris, who's not in the room, but she's here, and also Paula, who worked very hard to provide me with the information that I need to compile the information for the financial statement, right? So every other year we do a compilation and then an audit. An audit obviously is a lot deeper dive, a test of transactions, and review of items such as payroll, paid bills. A compilation is exactly like it sounds. It's compiling the financial information in financial statement form. So I am going to use this report to hit up the financial highlights of that. And please interrupt me at any point in time if you have any questions. Don't feel to leave it leave it to the end. You can just jump in and interrupt me. I am actually going to kind of dictate my presentation to the outline that I shared with the mayor, and he onward shared with you all. For those of you who do have the financial statements in front of you, we're going to go right to page 20.
Share it with you. You're good. You got one? Yeah.
So here, I'll share with you. So,
Oh, it's 20 on this, yeah.
no,
that's the master. Oh, yeah, hold on. I have it.
no, you're good. I have it right.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So, the general fund had revenues of $5,084,573 and expenditures of $5.452 million. This did result in a deficit of $367,000. The year ended February 29, 2024. That ultimately resulted in total fund balance at the end of the year of $2,986,590.
So real quick for anybody listening, because I know the folks here understand it, but fund balance means what, Justin?
Fund balance is your accumulated since the date of inception of the village, accumulated net assets or fund balance of the
Surplus.
village, surplus plus surplus less deficit since the inception of the village. In this particular year, there was a deficit of $367,000. Some years are good, and some years are not so good, depending on what the spending might have been. The mayor and the board would know more of the detail of why that result. So ultimately, bringing your total fund balance very healthy at $2,986,590. This includes a capital reserve that was set up in the 14-15 year by the board of $270,000, and also includes fund balance related to the LoSAP program of $323,000. Also, and actually it's going to be a better breakdown on page 18 of the fund balance for the general fund.
So we're at, I believe last year, as I recall off the top of my head, we were at 58% unallocated available fund balance per our following year budget.
Right.
The New York State Comptroller's Office requires you to be at a minimum of 10%. Less than 20% triggers their interest, 10% you're in trouble. And we are currently at 46.84% of next year's
For
budget.
available fund balance. Right,
Available
absolutely.
fund balance or surplus.
The mayor just took my thunder.
Oh,
Absolutely
I'm
right.
sorry.
No.
I always
totally
do
good.
that.
No, you're good.
I always have to make it about me.
No, absolutely. No, right. So like you said, the measurement, I'm sorry.
Not including LoSAP and.
Meaning it's not
Right,
earmarked
so
for
the-
capital.
The 46.84% is available fund balance.
Yeah.
Right,
The comptroller actually measures total fund balance
Right.
to the following year's budget. And if that falls below 20%, then they start to assess fiscal stress.
so when you talk availability, you talk availability less 10% or 20%?
No, so it's what's available is the total fund balance.
Right.
Less any of the reserve fund balance, which includes the LoSAP and also includes $270,000 in capital reserves. Also, we back off the amount that's appropriated in the following year's budget. In this case, the 24-25 budget had $158,000 appropriated. For 24-25, what that amount represents is the planned deficit for the year. The difference between your revenues coming in and your
Right.
budgeted expenditures. Ultimately resulting in $2.2 million in available fund balance, which is 46.84%, which is very healthy, right? So there's a balance. Just like, when you think of your personal finances, you don't want to live by the skin of your teeth, so you don't want to fall too low. But there comes a point where, if you get too high, it's not like if a resident moves or passes away, you're not going to write them a check either. So, you want to find that balance within. But in, very healthy fund balance at this point in time.
Justin, the 148,000 that's planned deficit, that means the deficit that we expect to run this year?
For 24-25.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, so in the preliminary budget that's being developed, you mean?
No, he hasn't looked at that.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
You're talking through the end of February.
When
Right.
our
This
yearly
is
is.
tax-
24-25.
So these, right, so these financial
Fiscal year
statements are
from
for the
April to-
year end,
yeah.
February 29th, 2024. The 158 represents the amount appropriated in the 24.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the water fund. Now, the water fund had an excellent year. The water fund's had excellent years ever since Mr. Trainer's taken over the water fund.
Oh, nice shout out to the superintendent. Well, he's still stung by the one Soto transfer,
Yeah,
so
well, me too,
anything you can
right,
help a
right.
Yankee fan.
That's
with
a
right
We
now,
were talking about that.
That's a
that is a deficit.
So, right, so revenues of 3.4 compared to expenditures of about 2.5, resulting in a surplus of $889,000, ultimately leaving a fund balance of $2.4 million. There is a capital reserve in the water fund of $40,000 that was originally established in the 1920 19-20.
Yeah, not 1920. Yeah.
That would be
say.
a while.
Yeah.
Year, and the resulting available fund balance is 2.36 million.
And Justin, I'm sorry, and we did that, and again, that started under Mayor Coyne's term. We did that every year where we had a surplus and could afford to move $10,000 into the capital reserve. We did that. Years that we don't have that available, we don't do it.
For instance, this year in the general fund, there was no surplus, therefore there was nothing put into the reserve in general.
Right. On the water side,
There
different set of
was a surplus, the
circumstances.
10,000 did grow in the capital reserve on the water side.
Got it.
Now, this amount of 2.360 is 69.39% of the following year's budget, which is very healthy. With these infrastructure funds, and I'll discuss the sewer fund as well in just a moment, large repairs can happen very quickly and can be very expensive. So as far as building fund balance in these infrastructure funds, in my opinion, I'd say there's like never enough, right? Because
that.
of the amount of dollars that these repairs cost, right? And ultimately, you're going to save the residents' interest dramatically. With, instead of going out for financing, if you're able to use available fund balance for that financing, that's going to help the village residents out dramatically in the future when there's large repairs to do. And I know not in this particular year, but if I remember back at 22, 23, there were very large repairs done, and they all came out of the water fund versus having to go out for financing in a capital project. So really, like, great job of managing and saving the district water customers, a lot of money.
So given massive expected expenditures for the water system to keep it current, it's varying ages, which we can talk about. The
Yes,
facts are up
right.
there. Is there a cap on that? Does the comptroller's office go, hey, you have 180% fund balance? That's not,
No,
You know,
so there
it's
is
like
no
it's not-
legal cap on that.
Okay.
Right, absolutely.
or
Because it's
fiscal.
fee-based. Because it's fee-based.
Really, I think it's more because if it's an infrastructure fund, right? So if there's infrastructure, then
It's very earmarked.
right,
It really can't be-
absolutely.
But you don't recommend keeping crazy fund balance because,
Right, so crazy fund balance as a percentage can be different than crazy fund balance as a dollar, right? So for instance, and this is kind of your segue and be perfect into the sewer fund here,
Yep.
right? Because the dollar amount is less, but the percentage is a lot higher. If
Crazy
there's
high.
repair, but the percentage, right, seems crazy high. However, one large repair could knock that fund balance right out of the water, right? So
Pun intended.
pun intended.
well,
So
I
revenue,
didn't catch
so
that one.
in the sewer fund, you have revenues of 584,000 and expenditures of 423,000, which resulted in a surplus of $161,000, bringing the total fund balance in the sewer to $2.365 million, which does include a large capital reserve of $650,000, which was established in the 14-15 year. And of course, it's funded on an annual basis when there is a surplus. Therefore, this year it was funded. This results in unassigned or available fund balance of 1.715 million. This amount is 339% of the following year's budget. And like you just said, that percentage number seems crazy high. However, $1.7 million is not a ridiculous amount of money when you're talking about large infrastructure repairs. And same concept applies where you're going to be saving those customers a lot of money in interest going forward when there's a ton. And I believe there's big infrastructure projects
Yes.
on the
And some
on
of
the
the,
horizon.
some of the questions that I get from Mrs. McGillicuddy are this: why are you still continuing to take money from us from the sewer capital end of things when you have a healthy fund balance there? So we don't own the sewage treatment plant, the town does. However, we are on the hook for 1/3 of any repairs, upgrades, operational maintenance. Now, I've been following along from the town. So since we first started a relationship with the town and had an MOU put together or an IMA put together, they figured it out that we were going to be 1/3 of whatever the town's total costs were. Believe it or not, the amount of effluence when they had the flow and they're able to track that works out to be around, we're at 32% right now over the last course of the number of years at 32%. And it was set up at 33%, so it's good. The issue is when they do ultimately do the major repairs or upgrade or remediations down there. I know that we're trying to get money from the state for this to help subsidize that, as well as from the feds. It is going to cost us money. So I look at it and I say, my argument to Mrs. McGillicuddy is, having this capital reserve, having this fund balance is, we're going to be on the hook and being able to say we can take a big portion of that and not have to take out a bond to help pay for that puts us in a good position. So when you get pushback from people that say, why are you still charging me $15 every 2 months. Isn't that what it is? Why are you still doing that? You started that after all the damage from Tropical Storm Irene and Superstorm Sandy in 2011 and 2012. You need to stop doing that. My argument is we know there's going to be some major repairs and some major monies needed, and that's what that's it.
And that's the concept, right? And now the money's in the bank collecting interest.
Yes.
Versus debt in the future having to pay interest. So by putting that money in the bank now, you're ultimately saving the village residents down the road.
So you're not alarmed by us being at 338.92% of the next year's
I've
budget
never, ever told the board they have too much fund balance in infrastructure funds, because I don't think that.
in infrastructure.
So the capital reserve funds, which are a small portion of those fund balances, are, what's the difference between the fund balance in those infrastructure accounts versus the capital reserve? Is it all capital, or is it?
So they've been earmarked specifically for capital reserve.
Mhm.
The
So certain types of
available fund.
expenditures are in there, but you can also use money from the general
So
fund to the. not the
let's
general
let's
fund,
take the
but
sewer fund capital reserve of 650,000. So if this board wanted to appropriate a large amount of money for the following year's budget, they couldn't dip into that reserve. So it's put,
for operational budget.
for operational budget versus capital.
Building a main or doing a capital improvement.
Absolutely, right. So it's set aside so that the operational budget can't dip into that.
But the fund balance generally we could also use for capital expenses if we had to. It's
Absolutely,
simply that
right.
this is specifically, okay, got it, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, the mayor and board back in 14-15 felt it important to set these reserves up, and I feel it's prudent.
You were on the board then, right?
Yeah,
Were you
well,
on the
we
board
get, yeah,
then?
because we get the bill for sewer projects,
I
which
think.
are
I
big
think We
projects.
had made one payment to the town. Didn't we make one
Yeah,
payment?
we
like,
did.
A few $100,000. I'm almost positive.
Yeah, for the
Am I-
repair.
am I-
I'm not sure.
repair of the sewer plant, which is
Yes.
supposed to be totally rebuilt now, right?
Yes.
They're doing a complete
Right, so
redo.
we'll have a portion of that.
Yes.
30% or whatever it is.
What else?
3%.
That really was the most relevant information
So
that I
this
wanted
is
to.
the best part of Justin Wood. So this entire book right here, which
If
goes
anybody
out
has
to
any
after the
questions,
appendices
read them all
and the 63 pages that made my eyes glaze over, I told him 8.5 by 11 sheet. He goes, I'm going to give you what you need. And every year, this is what he briefs me and the treasurer on, and it's very appreciative because I think for the trustees who aren't immersed in this either like that, this is a big help. Now, Justin was gracious enough to say, I'll give a quick dump and then any questions that the board has. And Justin's on a retainer, so we can call him at any time. But if there's any questions that folks have in regards to this next year, this next budget cycle, we're up for a full audit, correct?
Full audit, and you'll be doing a single audit based on the FEMA money that the village
Yes.
has
Will it be
received.
possible to go over the whole book with that?
If you'd like to, I'd be happy to. I'm sure the mayor would love it. I'll have to earmark about an hour and a half.
You won't be here.
I know my attention span, right? That's the problem.
This, I think multiple people can answer, but stormwater, that's town, the village general fund, right?
Drainage.
Stormwater.
Right.
drainage,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, that's not the water
Yeah,
fund.
it's not water, it's not sewer, so
Yeah,
it's
that's
out of that,
Gen A,
yes, out of the 2985.
General fund.
general fund. Yeah. All right, any other questions for Mr. Wood?
Thank you.
I have one more, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No.
What is the other giant chunk of money besides water, sewer? I mean, obviously operations staff, things like that. Stormwater, sewer, water.
Transportation.
You're talking all infrastructure right
I
there.
guess I'm just
Right.
wondering about other infrastructure. I mean, paving.
Roads.
Yeah.
Right.
Roads.
There's nothing hidden. There's no like.
Right. Nothing that.
Yeah,
no,
don't
they're
forget
gonna
the
give you
subterranean
perspective.
tunnels, you know, like we
So
don't have
you're-
anything like that.
I mean,
right?
the other side of it is a big part of any budget is going to be payroll and employee benefits.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
But that's kind of steady
and equipment
operational,
and-
right?
And,
So-
and when people ask about a deficit, they're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, what are you spending money on? Well, every year, healthcare benefits go up. Pensions go up for our employees. The contracts
Insurance.
every year, and we're in the negotiations right now with the CSEA and with the PBA for contracts for the next 3 or 4 years. Those are all going to be increased costs that are not already built into the budget, and that's where it is. It isn't us spending more money on sidewalks than we should or anything else. It is.
What
on
percentage
those.
of our budget is salary and benefits?
Hey, that's a good question, Justin.
Altogether, employee benefits is 20%, And generally, payroll, hard to tell by looking at this. I'm gonna guess between 35 and 40. It's generally around 60% payroll and
Is
benefits
that-
of your operational budget.
Is that on average? And
That's on
with other-
average, right? So
And so
you're-
we're
you're-
in that,
You're in that, I would have to take a little bit deeper look, and I certainly can follow up with an answer on that, but it's roughly usually between 55 and 65% with employee benefits and salary.
Yeah.
That's a norm.
yeah.
Right.
Well, I think in the federal budget, entitlements and the US military, 81% of the
90
United
in the-
States.
90 in the school district.
Yeah, but 81% is entitlements in the military in the US federal budget every year. 81%. Everything else comes out of the 19%.
Yeah.
So, okay, any other questions for Justin? I don't want to keep him too long. Justin, that was
Thank you.
amazing. And this is Justin's gift, is being able to put it down into an easily digestible
Very good.
one pager for us.
And as the mayor said, anytime somebody wants a one-on-one discussion about any of this stuff, I'm happy to take it.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Get out of here while the getting's good, pal. Get out of here while the getting's good. Justin, thank you.
Thank you.
You got it.
I've enjoyed you on the show too. Last week I caught you twice. Catching you tonight.
You'll catch me tonight.
I
Yep.
appreciate you saying the best police force in the world, the NYPD.
I firmly believe it.
Credit.
Wow, well, thank you for the shout out.
Chief is right here.
I mean, the second best after Cornwall. Yes. All right. All right. All right. So thanks. I wanted you, and I know you folks had already seen this, meaning the trustees had already seen this. This was also helping me tee up the superintendents, because next week when I sit down with them on their budgets and we start to build out the budget. Okay, so I'm going to do a little moving some things around. Apologies, because I know we put the agenda out, and any changes to the agenda always come from me. They never come from anybody else. So I take full responsibility for that. I am going to move down the monthly department reports. I've asked the treasurer now to attend our work session meetings, just like the other department heads, so that if there's any questions about budget questions, end of month questions, all the stuff that we brief out at the business meeting, we'll have the treasurer here to speak to that. So Megan is sitting in for that, but we're going to push those reports down for when I have to jump out at 7:50 on something. The deputy mayor will take over and can start right there. I'm going to add something. We don't have, I know the town does this where they have separate meetings for budget. Since our budget has to be approved by February 1 to January 31st. And then if we're still in the preliminary budget and whatever the first budget offered is, that becomes the budget. So we need to make sure that before that happens, next week I meet with the department heads. I will get the village board within 2 weeks a copy of our preliminary budget. Before we do that, I want to talk about the big numbers that Justin just mentioned. As Megan has pointed out, and I let the board know, the tax cap this year is 1.0067%. Now, this village board prides itself on staying beneath the tax cap. Obviously, a lot of things are factored into our budget. Revenues this year, believe it or not, revenues have increased for the village because of property tax assessment. So the fact that, people's property were appraised higher, they pay more taxes on that. Keep in mind that people can then go back and grieve those or get, a downward reduction on them. But our revenues increased this year. I've asked all the department heads to take a look at trying to make some cuts. I know it's going to be a hard conversation I have with them next week because everything's going up. And remember, when I ask them to make cuts, it has nothing to do with compensation, pay, and salaries. Those things are done by contract. It's trying to figure out if there's any places we can trim on operational costs. Having said that, I asked Megan to provide me, and each of you should have this, 2 separate computation schedules with 2 things. If we do use fund balance this year, and I'll just give you a number. Last year we used, and I asked Gene what it would take to keep us under the tax cap. We used a total of $158,000 in fund balance so that we did not have to bust the tax cap. We already voted to do that if need be. I'd like to stay below that, but I also don't want to blow it up. We're not raising taxes, and as we go into following years, all of a sudden you're going from, hey, you stayed under the tax cap. Now we have to increase taxes 8% because the economy tanked or something bad happened. So with us using $158,000 last year, I think our available fund balance 2 years ago was $2.6 million. This year, even with the deficit, We're at 2.9 million in village surplus. My argument is, and I asked Megan to run these numbers are in front of you. One example is if we use 200,000 in reserve funds, which is available fund balance, versus $250,463 in available fund balance. Jimmy, where did you get those numbers from? As I look at a almost $3 million fund balance, and I wanted to play around with what would it be to decrease taxes and what would it be to slightly increase taxes? If we go 250,000, all right, let's just use that number on there. If we do that, people could see in a house that's valued at 200,000. Now, I challenge you to find a house in the village of Cornwall and Hudson around $200,000. So let's double that. If it's a house that's valued at $200,000, it would be $8 a year, not a month, $8 a year decrease in their taxes. Okay, so think about that. If we used $200,000 in fund balance, there would be a slight increase. What would that increase be? Again, looking at a $200,000 house, it would be $20 per annum. So let's just factor in $400,000 house. It would be a $40 bump up for somebody that owns a $400,000 house per annum, per year. So these numbers, and Megan can speak to any of these numbers on here. She's crunched these. Jimmy, why didn't you do 150,000? Why didn't you do 300,000? I just wanted to get in the sweet spot of what would it cost to be a slight bump up in taxes, and what would it be to be a slight decrease in taxes? And $200,000 and $250,000 in fund balance is what does that, staying below the tax gap of 1.0067.
One thing to point out though is that, just to clarify, this does not include, well, let me ask you this, does it or does it not include the PDA and CSEA, the projected, or is this based on the continuation of the current contract?
Megan?
I would have to double check, but I believe it does not include.
Yeah.
That
So it's
contract.
Okay, so it's based on the current rate.
Yeah.
So
that's-
yeah, so we are looking at what those, not talking about numbers or the
Yeah.
contract right now, but obviously understanding that we are in contract negotiations. We talk about that in attorney-client, but we are in contract negotiations. The understanding is that there are going to be pay increases. There's going to be compensation percentage increases, and factoring that in. Yes, that does not take in. That is where we stay flat at right now.
Yeah, I think then, when the projection we'd have to use those numbers, projected numbers. So we get a better feel, because right now you're looking at a decrease and I'm saying to myself, it's not gonna happen.
Right.
I'm not saying there's gonna be a giant increase.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would feel more comfortable if you could run that, Megan, at least just put a bogey, Jim can give you, bogey numbers to put in there.
Yeah.
I
And
can
then,
touch base with Paula.
Yeah. that way we absolutely get a better feel for where we're sitting. So,
Are those projected increases, you've said it firmly, that it's per annum, not per month?
No, it's for, yeah.
Per
It
annum.
is per year,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and Jim Kane's point is a good one, because these are done without factoring. The contracts are supposed to come online, is it March 31st, Jim, or March 1st?
yes.
March 1st, which is the day our next budget begins. So again, that's not taking this into account. I am committing to not happening what's happened in the past, and it's one side or the other or both sides, but trying to get these done as close to that March 1st date as possible. And I think, I'm not gonna get out over my skis, but I think it can be done. If that is done, again, looking at these numbers, what this would be, I think a slight adjustment up, using fund balance, which I was kind of against in the beginning, but recognizing that, again, we bumped up fund balance this year by $350,000. I think that's fair to use that to pay for the additional cost and the increase in percentages.
Use it to blunt the
it.
increase.
Yes.
Agree.
Yes. And so the sweet spot right now, what would it be? It's between 200 and 250,000, between slight decrease in taxes, slight bump up in taxes.
Yeah.
So, yes. So Megan, anything else to add on these two rundowns? And again, I gave her those numbers, 200 and 250, and said, play with those. I knew that the fulcrum, the sweet spot in the middle of that was 0, and then slight give back, slight cost increase, and where that stands. So really, we're looking at a slight increase, which probably makes sense to cover the contracts, the forecasted contracts, and bumping up slightly the amount of fund balance that we would use. What are we comfortable with as a board using in fund balance? Remember, on a $3 million available fund balance, $300,000 is 10%,
Yeah.
correct? So that would be 10%. We're at 46.8% of next year's budget, not factoring in the contracts, but we're at 46.8%. I could conceivably go with that high if it made sense and it kept us revenue neutral or tax neutral. Does the board feel that way?
I'd have to see I want to see the numbers.
Right.
Yeah, I want to see the
So,
numbers.
so here's
first.
what I will do, because
Yeah.
she doesn't know the numbers
Yeah,
yet.
no, I get it.
And I know Paul has run numbers for me, our deputy village treasurer. I will have her with what our projected potential offer
Yeah.
could be. I will have her run those numbers, how that will impact next year's budget.
Yeah, that we.
Yeah.
Good.
That's the best way.
Is that fair?
Yeah, because then we
You
can see the,
anticipate going over the cap or no?
I don't know, because, I mean, look, we voted to go over the cap if need
We
be,
always do.
but is there a way to do it? If we're sitting on what we are in fund balance right now, I don't want to spend like drunken sailors, but by the same token, if it helps us blunt the impact of inflation, which has been tough on people, and it helps us cover the first year in the contract increases, I think that that's an appropriate use of it.
Yeah.
Does anybody see it differently or say, no, we shouldn't do it? Or yes, we should use more of it?
that's
You
gonna-
have a ballpark for the bogey number in your head, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's the number itself, but also what that translates to across the people that we, where the increases will come in. I'm in favor of potentially using fund balance to make it up. I mean, it doesn't seem to me that it would be draining the fund balance. It would be taking a rational bite.
I mean, obviously, we want to protect as much of the fund balance as possible, because when we do have things we have to do going forward, infrastructure doesn't impact water, because remember, Michael's got a separate budget for that and a separate fund balance for that. But Bill, you pointed out stormwater, and that is going to be tens of millions of dollars to redo that. It is not going to happen while I'm here. It is going to happen at some point in time, and we may not be able to do it all, but we may need to earmark money for that. And that's why I don't want to draw down fund balance too far, but by the same token, I think people are hurting right now, and I think we could do this smartly and apply enough fund balance that it's not a huge hit to the budget where it requires us to raise taxes. But that's the sweet spot without the contract offers factored in it. But I will get that to the board, and I will email that to the four of you so that you can take a look at that.
Yeah.
Megan, all right? We'll make sure that we do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what's
I
that?
don't know.
You don't? Okay, I'll make sure you got it. Why didn't you have a copy of these? The two
They're
copies?
not in your packet there?
They're not in your packet?
No.
Okay, all right, that's an oversight,
That's
Dave,
fine.
my
That's
apologies. Okay, all right, so that
I
is,
have an extra copy.
do you, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That is, as far as I'm concerned, the initial opening into the budget. I've obviously been working on this with the treasurer, and we'll be doing this with department heads next week, and then I will have something to you folks before the end of this week in regards to the question about impact of the offers on the contracts, and then within 2 weeks, a preliminary budget for you to take a look at. All right. Okay, so that is that on the budget, which wasn't on the agenda, and the next matter is water rates. Okay, everybody knows the water rates. We discussed this in public almost ad nauseum, but this is related to the fact that back in 1974, the village board voted to charge everyone outside of the village. That's everyone, the town, whether it's residential, commercial, municipal, the school district, anything outside of the village, the rates had to be plus 80%. Over the course of a number of years, beginning in the late 80s, that disparity, the difference has dropped from that plus 80 down to the current plus 33%. Right now, people in the town, and that includes the school district, they pay $16 per 1,000 gallons, and in the village, it's plus $12. Anything that the school district has in the village, they pay the village rate. Anything the school district has in the town, they pay the town rate, which is still far below the +80 required. This village board voted a number of months ago to remove that provision in our village code. It was in our code, it was just not enforced. But an issue that has been around for a while and is the catalyst or the cause of the village board charging +80 back in 1974, has come to the village board's attention. We've looked at this, and it's the fact that the town charges us property taxes on the facilities that we own in the town. And those property taxes, which can range anywhere from $27,000 a year to $31,000 a year, also trigger school district taxes, which are in the neighborhood of $157,000 to $160,000 per year. My argument, and the argument that I've made to the village board, is that those properties should be exempted. The town has not been willing to do that. The school district has not been willing to do that. I'm not suggesting it's an antagonistic relationship. It's just they're not willing to do that. And so what we are looking at as a village board is raising water rates. Now, when we raise water rates, we're not going to raise water rates on residential or commercial properties in the town, because Mrs. McGillicuddy should not be forced to pay a higher rate because the town doesn't exempt us of property taxes on properties where we treat and process the water that we then deliver to them. But we are going to do, and last business meeting, I read into the record a resolution, which is still in the draft stage, of which we will consider next Monday, the 16th, and then take a vote on whether or not we are going to raise that rate. The rates will only be raised for town municipal properties. So town hall, the pool, Munger Cottage, the American Legion, the Girl Scout Cottage, water that they use municipally will be charged to them at a higher rate. And the same thing for the school district. So the school district properties, they will be charged a rate commensurate with us being able to get back that money. Well, why is that important? Because we have a $3 million budget, and that $200,000 is 7% of our budget. The town has a $17 million budget. The school district has a $90+ million budget. And in the school district, they also have children that go there whose families do not pay into our water fund at all because they live in New Windsor or the town of Woodbury. So long story short, on Wednesday, we have a meeting with the town. They've graciously agreed to come and meet with us, with their council, the school district, the superintendent, the school district's attorney, and the Board of Education president, myself, our council, and the deputy mayor have a meeting here at Village Hall to talk about some potential opportunities down the road that the water superintendent graciously put together as services in lieu of taxes, something that we could offer. It's not going to be settled at that meeting. We're still going to need to pursue our plan going forward, but at least make this offer that if you want us to reduce those rates, bring you back down to where you are now, we could maybe trade you some work or some services in return for you waiving those property taxes or exempting us on those properties. Michael, what did I leave out on that? Because you and I have probably talked about this more than anyone else.
You've done it quite well.
Jim Kane, you know this probably as close as he does.
No, I mean,
Okay. So that's where we are.
explained it well.
That's where we are on the water rate. So we don't want to, we understand now, we don't want to, hurt any commercial entity or resident, and charge them higher taxes. These are the reasons why we would do this, is because the taxing authorities, the ones that make the decision not to exempt our properties, the taxing authorities, it costs us more money to deliver them water. And as such, we're just looking to recoup, if that's the right word, the amount of increased cost to deliver them water. And hopefully we'll have a great conversation and figure out some path forward, but the village board will be prepared on Monday to vote for that increase for municipal properties or taxing authorities. Okay, so that's the water rates brief in under other business. The next thing, I'm going to have Manny speak to this, and then I'm going to duck out for about 20 or 30 minutes. Jim Kane, you're going to take on, Manny's going to handle establishing the time limit for bill backs by attorney and the engineer. Just give the board a little background on that. Manny, I kind of prepped the battlefield, but I want you to explain what we're looking to do on that. I have spoken to Joe McKay about it a little, so he understands. I have not spoken to our engineer about it, but Manny will brief on that. Jim Kane will then give a quick status of the Cornwall Yacht Club lease agreement, because he's been involved in the negotiations with me on that. Dave Carnwright, Dave Halverson, you're prepared to speak on the Churchill Street, where we stand on the public hearing, which I believe we still left open on that, what our next steps are. Michael Trainer will speak on the Sphagnum Reservoir rehab and what the plan is on that. And I wanted to say this when we were talking about the compilation and where the water fund is. We're looking at repairs and remediations to the Sphagnum Dam, which is number 4 as you go up the mountain. It's the number 4. So it's not the top dam, the highest elevation dam, but the second one. We're talking about $2 million in repairs and Michael, $200,000 in the engineer work. So we're talking about $2.2 million. So you look at that and you go, look how much money you have in the water fund. Your available fund balance is $2.3 million. Just doing the necessary repairs and getting the engineering evaluation and work done up there would wipe out our fund balance in the water fund. So anybody that goes, why are you raising water rates? Look at what you're sitting on. This is what we're responsible for. So Michael will handle that. GIS mapping and water infrastructure. Michael, you handle that. I should be back in advance of that. Sewer and garbage credits. Dave, you'll speak to that in general, just to make sure that we're locked in with what we discussed in executive session, and I'll be back before that. Is that all right? All right, so I'm gonna turn it over to the deputy mayor. I will be back, and Mr. Carmona, if you can give them a briefing on what we're looking to do to fix the bill back issue and the late bills that we're getting from engineers and the attorneys.
As you know, every application that went from the planning and zoning board has to establish an escrow account, which we use to pay for their services. When they do plan review, when they come from the board. The problem that we have is that we do collect the money, but the bills are not coming quick enough for us to pay them for their services. There have been applications where we get the bill like 2 years later after the application has been approved. So where do we get this money from? The applicant is long gone, the project probably already finished, they probably got their money back.
Hold on a minute. When you're saying this though, you're saying this because the fund is not being, because the bills are late, then the escrow is not up to date.
That is correct.
Okay.
I'm requesting that we probably set some kind of agreement perhaps with the professional that they bill us within 30 days of their review. That will give me time, to replenish that escrow if we need to, while the project is still in front of the board.
Yes. So what about it being, I agree with that, but what about the instances where you don't get it? So I guess what I'm looking at is, what about if you come up with an estimate? So, because what are you basing the escrow fund on, the amount?
It's established already within our fee schedule to start the project.
Okay.
Some of them is $2,000, some is $1,000.
Okay,
Some I believe maybe 4,000. The bigger project like this for the 17 subdivision, that's probably gonna be $4,000 or $5,000.
okay.
And then we start paying off the money. But if I don't get the bills early enough, so I can start deducting from that fund, at the end we may probably, be under.
This is from our professionals.
Yes, sir.
The
Yeah,
attorney and engineer
yeah.
for the planning and zoning.
They do send us the bill, but they just don't come quickly
Timely.
enough.
So
Okay.
2
Is
years
there a
later, you said, like they go that
We
long.
had one application, I gotta say that 2 years later we received it.
Is that because they didn't receive, has anything to do, Manny, with the timeline for the CO on the project?
No, I mean, we should be paid off way before that. We should pay all the services by the time I issue the permit.
Right, I get you.
Is it all one escrow account for all of the applications and all of the fees that get paid into it? And we have a single account that is our escrow account?
I'm not sure if they said it as one account, but we do keep track individually.
So then
Yeah.
the fund should be there technically 2 years
But you're
later.
not,
Well,
but you can't dip into someone else's fund, so it's
No.
not fungible, it's earmarked for each applicant, so you can't borrow from one other applicant to
correct.
But
pay.
where is the money going?
Yeah,
I mean,
where-
Isn't it
right.
still
Right,
there?
if I put it in
It's not there.
1999,
But
Where does
it's
it
not,
go though?
We gotta give it back to the applicant. By the end of the project, any money that is left over from that account goes back to the applicant.
yeah,
And that's what
Oh,
we
so
have
you
the
do
problem.
that before all the bills are paid?
Well, like this particular one, 2 years later, you assume all the bills were paid. And you give the money back And now guess what? It's another bill.
Right, if they haven't presented us with an invoice, I guess, if they haven't billed us for the project's over,
We
the
give it-
requirements are that we say, okay, anything left in the escrow account goes back to the applicant after the project is completely over. So then, now, do our professionals know this? Joe's not here, but-
I spoke with Joe, I haven't spoken with Jason about it, but we want to get into an agreement with them. How can we set it that they can give us the bill
Yeah.
sooner? However they want to work it out. I mean, I don't want to say that it's mandatory, but, we can delay it 6 months, 3 months. It should be right after your review. We should get a bill.
No, we
Do it
just,
or-
we just need to tell them, and you know what, look, both contracts are coming up in April, so we can make it part of the contract where they have to bill in a certain amount of time. I think the other thing too is, it can help both ways, one is we give them a time frame, 30 to 45 days, and then I think on our end, what we could do too is we give them notice. We give our engineers and our attorneys notice, our professional services, you give them notice that, hey, we're paying back the balance of the escrow account to the client, unless we receive a bill from you.
So we have to invoice them for an invoice?
Well, I'm just saying that,
No,
but you
send
can do
an
that,
email.
now. I mean,
What's your experience in, I know you work a lot of places. What's your experience in other?
Other municipality where I work, the design professional, except for the engineer, and we have one engineer in Nyack. I mean, we get the bill with her. I mean,
Yeah,
she reviews the plans, we got the bill. They want to get paid.
yeah.
They waste no time.
Because I'm just playing that, you could say all you want, you can say 30 days, 45 days. But unless there's a penalty for it, if they go beyond the 30 or 45 days, that's why I'm saying, like, you don't have to invoice them every time, but if you get to the point where, like, hey, you're about to do this, and you haven't seen anything come in from Joe or come in from the engineer, it's like, give them the heads up, even if it's a call, I don't care
Or
what.
you could let them know ahead of time.
Yeah,
You have
like,
this
we're-
much time and then we're gonna be giving that money back.
But if they don't do it on a regular basis, like, we got a project that can go 3, 4, 6 months in the board and they review it. If I'm not getting a bill
Yeah,
constantly, then my money may not be enough to pay these 6 bills that they send me at one time.
Right.
Now I'm stuck. Now I gotta go
Right.
after the applicant.
Yeah,
Look,
that's
we need
hard
more
to
money.
do.
Yes.
But if I get the bill right away, I say, look, you're not going to the next meeting unless you give me more
Right.
money for
And
the
you have
escrow.
leverage.
And
And we got leverage.
You've
exactly.
spoken to
You
Joe
don't have
about
no
this?
leverage.
We
once the
spoke about it,
project's
but we just haven't come up to a decision on how
Yeah.
we're gonna do it, how, I don't know how his accounting situation is, how he does his business.
Yeah, all right.
I
Well,
would like for him to just send us a bill more regularly.
And how much variation is there in the bills that they eventually send us? Is it, some projects are a lot more hours and some are,
Some a lot more hours, like this one coming up is gonna be a lot of hours.
yeah. Is it, cause I'm less inclined to give the building department more work to do to like keep chasing people to bill us.
I get that, but what I'm saying though is that it doesn't, again, what I'm saying is, I get it, you can give them 30 days, what I'm saying is like,
What
if
happens
you-
after?
what happens when it doesn't
Then
happen,
we send
which
you,
is gonna
we send
happen.
you our estimated amount and you can't bill us for the, I mean,
So,
Like this, I'm sure that one that was 2 years later, that they found out later, oh, wait a minute, we got one more bill. I'm sure they didn't do it on
and they
purpose.
probably ate
Yeah,
it,
we looked at it and they said, well, now we gotta
And-
send it.
and did they eat it?
I think it's still pending on what we're gonna do with that.
So,
When the
because
village
if,
is gonna pay or what.
because if I were the client, if I were their, the resident or whoever,
Yeah.
I would be like, are you serious?
That's
So-
what they're saying, yeah.
That's,
We have a resident that had a project and he sold the property, he moved out of state. It was difficult to get a hold of him, go back and forth and.
yeah.
and you would chase the applicant for that money
Well, we have.
that they didn't know they had to pay,
Well,
that
yeah.
you refunded to them and that
He's
the,
gotta balance his books
And it's
down there
becoming a
at the end
problem,
of
that's
the year.
exactly what.
That
it's
is a
becoming.
problem.
It's becoming a problem, so we gotta come up.
it sounds
with
like
a
it's the
solution.
professional's problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it is.
It is.
It is. So we have
And
to,
they have a big office too.
we gotta talk to McKay and then we'll have to talk to Jason. And you haven't spoken. to
Maybe they
Jason
have a
yet.
remedy. Maybe they can offer us up a remedy. What do they want? What are they looking for?
And you think the best, Manny, would be every 30 days?
Maximum.
Maximum,
If less, even better. I mean, it shouldn't take that long. You do a review, just do a bill at the same time
Yeah,
and send it out with your report.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right there doing it. How long should it take? You're writing up a report anyway.
Yeah.
But with
Yeah.
the report, send the bill.
Yeah.
That will be
I
outstanding.
don't have a problem with that. So let's talk, listen, Mike, Joe's gonna be here next week anyway for our meeting. But I can give him a ring and, I'll talk to him about it.
I mean, it's for their own benefit. They'll get paid a lot
Yeah,
quicker than
no,
money's there. I mean,
absolutely.
it's really more for their benefit.
Because as part of it, it could be, well, if you don't bill us, then you're not gonna, if you don't,
That's what you.
that's what I'm
comes
saying.
into
It's
play,
like you can put in a complete end date, like, I don't know, 90 days or something like that. But look, let's talk to McKay. We can't be the first one who's gone through this with them. And I'm sure they represent a bunch of municipalities, same thing that's been going Deutsch.
And
So-
and I'm trying to just make it easier on us
Yes.
in the building department and keeping track of it
Just give me a number of how many of these situations are
every
we,
single time.
but not to the extent of where it's 2 years.
No, not to that extent. That might
That's
be an
the
exception.
anomaly.
Yeah,
Okay,
but still, it's taking too long.
okay, all right. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Manny. Glad we know.
Okay. All right, the Cornwall Yacht Club lease. A couple of weeks ago, Jim and I had another meeting with the two reps. It went well. We are almost there. I think we will be. I just have to make some, a couple minor changes to it. And then we'll come back to the board. Again, Joe hasn't reviewed it. There's two parts of this. There's the lease amendment and then there's the Shore Road portion of it. He has not really looked at either one of those. He did, it's only a minimal amount because I had some questions for him. But I think like when I say we're almost there, I think we're like 95% there. So the next thing we'll do is, once I make these changes and their two reps come back and say, yeah, we're good to go. And then what we'll do is, we'll run it by the board, give you guys a heads up on it, because that's what they're gonna do with their membership. And then both sides will have their attorneys take a look at it and, hopefully we'll be able to move forward with a final agreement. They'll just have to be kind of nuanced or tweaked, if the attorneys want to do that.
There'll be two separate agreements, right? A lease.
Yes, yeah,
And
one's a
then-
lease,
and then
one's a
an
lease
agreement
number,
over-
yes,
yeah.
complete, yeah, yes, it's
One's
two
the
separate,
property, one's the road.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, it can be looked at as if you want to look at it as a global global deal.
Yeah,
But
bundled.
it's two.
There'll be two
But
signatures. so two
Absolutely,
separate
yeah,
documents.
it's two separate things, yes. All right, then with respect to, all right, Dave, how about, parking on Churchill Street?
I like your
Churchill
picture.
Churchill Street, the simplest way to go with it is going to be up at the top where it is now, where there's parking on the one side where you come in. We're going to have to start, we'll put a no parking sign down past which would be Bella Garrison's house, from there to corner. That's gonna be the simplest way to do it. That'll allow parking from, I think it's 10 feet in or 15 feet in from the corner down to that sign, which is gonna allow parking in front of Bella Garrison's house unless we put no parking signs in front of her house, but that's not what they want either.
Okay, so you're saying,
Halfway there with the map.
I thought when we left off last month, it was, I'm gonna just put this in general terms. Not on, would that be the south side, the north side of the street?
Let me
I
get
thought-
Idlewild
Yeah,
side or
good idea.
spruce.
This
Right.
is east.
There's currently parking
Yes, all the
here
way down, yes, and
to,
that's
to here, which is, this is
her
Garrison's
side,
driveway,
right,
right?
yes, I remember that, yep, okay.
That's already parking. Then this was no parking.
Correct,
They want to have parking
yeah,
here.
right,
So the only way to do it is instead of having no parking here, we'll put no parking here.
to the corner,
Oh,
right,
to
that's
the
what,
corner.
right,
Yeah.
that's why I was wondering, like,
Yeah.
oh, this is a
Ah.
house.
That's a house.
I thought this is an arrow, that's
No,
why
that's
I'm
a
like
house.
looking at it, I'm
No.
like, what does that mean?
That's not my
Okay.
drawing. That
Okay,
is
all
not
right.
my
What's the
drawing.
matter with that house?
Okay, so
So,
there's
yes,
no
okay.
parking
Put a
this
front
way.
door on.
So there's
like
gonna
that.
be a sign here that's gonna say, no
No park.
parking to corner.
Here to the corner, yeah. And you'll have about 3 or 4
ready
parking
to
spaces
That's,
there.
all right, so that's
And so
exactly what we
they'll-
spoke
and
about.
That's the simplest
And
way to
there's
do it.
already parking
It's
over
called
here.
look the
Yeah.
There's
other way.
already parking.
And what do we got going on over here?
No parking that side at all.
Right, it's already, so everything
Yeah,
remains
on
the
that-
same except for,
We're adding a
Is-
couple of spaces here.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
that's
we're
it.
removing a bunch of no parking signs. Correct?
Yes, we'll end up removing probably, I think, 2 signs.
Just two.
That are on, that are over
There's
here.
only four.
That are on this side,
Yeah.
on,
Yes.
on the Garrison side.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So-
okay.
Okay. Got it.
One sign, no parking to corner.
And that
Right,
is,
and
that
that's
makes
about-
everyone happy. Yes?
That clears about 20 feet there. And then you can't park in front of somebody's driveway.
Right.
But what you're saying is it still will enable parking in front of their house.
Correct.
Which was also somewhat problematic, right? Because there's no curb,
There's no
wheels
curb,
on
there's
the-
no
wheels
curb
on the-
anywhere.
That sign is already there.
There's no curb anywhere.
Right, but I
That's-
think we're proposing.
There's a
to
no
take-
parking sign there now.
Yes,
So you're proposing to remove that or leave? that?
Remove it.
yes.
So you'd
You
have,
can, you can't,
how does it affect the, I forget the family name, but, close by Storm King Lounge, the first driveway with the large, got a large driveway there on the, if I'm going from Idlewild.
there's
towards-
only one driveway on that left-hand side.
Right, and part of what sparked this entire, yeah, there's only one on the left-hand side. But on the right-hand side, one of the things that sparked this whole thing was parking on the
Couldn't back
left
out.
side where they couldn't back
There's
out of
still
the
no
driveway.
parking
In
over there.
snowstorms.
Oh, I.
Presently, but I think we're
Yes,
talking about.
but
No, no, no.
I agree, but those are the 2 houses next to each other. One wants, one doesn't,
I see.
which,
Yeah, these guys on the other side, on the Storm King side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're fine the way it is right now,
And there's
correct? This is what we
no
went
parking.
through last.
Well,
last-
right, that's because there's no parking.
No parking.
No
all the
parking.
way
But
over.
Yeah.
what we're saying
with the
is,
exception of the neighbor who has no place to park his cars.
right, we're, Mr.
Now he'll be able to park across the street.
Yes.
Over
Yes.
here. So, but we're not taking away, we are taking away the no parking at the Idlewild end, which may then trigger.
You can park there already.
No, yeah, this is all
You can already park here.
You can park from
Idlewild.
15 feet in off Idlewild Avenue on the left-hand side going down to the first driveway.
And nobody
Currently.
objects. Okay. well,
Yeah.
And what we're looking to do is then allow parking past that driveway down to about 25 feet
Okay.
Right.
This is
from the
cons-
intersection.
That seems
Just-
very
just
reasonable.
remind me, this is consistent with what we talked about at
The last meeting.
last meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And with
Okay.
the various.
That's the simplest way to
Stakeholders.
fix it.
And this, okay, all right, this is
But
what I
that's
told.
with the least amount of signs.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it was in 2020.
It
It's
probably
basically
was.
putting it back to where it was.
Pretty much. There's a couple
Okay.
nuances.
We're moving the no parking
Right.
up further.
So that's good.
All right.
That would have
From
my
Spruce Street.
yes vote when we're.
Yes,
Which I want to give more room for fire department
Yes.
EMS.
Yeah, we have to.
Because
How many feet you gotta go in, 20
getting,
or
get,
something?
15, 20.
I think legal, I think you need at least 10 feet, but with the equipment that Storm King has, the ladder
Yeah,
truck,
and that is the narrow.
they're gonna have to back it out of there
All right,
Yeah, for sure.
unless we block that end.
okay. Very good.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, up next, Magnum Rehab.
Magnum Rehab. All right, I'll pass around proposals. If you can, David, just pass these around.
I think we may.
Yeah, they think-
You got 'em?
Yeah.
Possibly.
I hope so.
That's something.
Somebody doesn't
All right.
have them. I have.
If not, I have. Perfect.
Let me see, I'll read both. I'll follow along.
Oh, wait,
I don't
no,
think you
wait,
can
this
afford
is their,
that budget.
no,
Is
this
that
is their,
their annual contract?
I'm sorry, we don't have it. This, we have their proposal.
Yeah, that's all. This is a
Oh.
proposal.
No,
Is this their
Yeah,
annual
it is.
contract proposal?
this is their contract.
I don't know. Let me see what they gave you. Wait.
This is not for
This
the,
is-
this is not for
Oh, so
Spectrum.
this
No,
is
that's not-
This is just their
This
annual.
is their bidding.
No, no, wait.
now.
Nope,
No,
nope.
this is it.
Description of services,
It's
last
just
page.
put together
It's
backwards.
just put together
It's
backwards.
put together backwards.
Yeah, whoever put it together backwards.
But this is in regards to BlackRock.
Yeah, that's Spectrum Dam.
It's there, Jim.
Okay.
It's there. Just turn it over backwards. Turn it on the
Start
last
from the
page.
back page.
Staples in the wrong corner.
Yes.
There you go.
Staple location matters.
It's done on the machine.
All right, so as everybody knows, the Spectrum dam's been in need of some rehabilitation for the better part of probably almost 2 decades. We've applied for, I don't think we've applied for funding in the past because it's never eligible for funding through the state or the federal government because it's not considered a high hazard dam.
Right.
This year we have applied for funding because there's a new program out there that does allow for that dam to be considered. It's a medium hazard dam. We should know by the end of this month whether we're successful at it. But I'd like to ask the board to consider moving forward with the project, whether we receive that funding or not.
What with the engineering part?
Well, yeah, you gotta do that first.
That's what's on the table now.
Correct.
233.
So what they're proposing is for them to design it. It will take them about 6 or 7 months to complete the design. The cost is $233,000 for the design alone. That is about 10% of the overall cost of the project.
233,880, is that it? Yeah.
Yep. So they're thinking they could have the design out and done and ready to go by the end of the summer next year, and you could go out to bid in the fall, and
Who's
the
gonna
project could be completed within about 18 months.
Earthen Dam, right?
Yeah, that's what it would end up being. It's
Clay?
such a remote
Yeah,
location.
it's tough.
Designed by when?
We could get the design, if you guys were to authorize this next month,
Yeah.
we could have it designed by summertime.
Bid in the fall.
Bid in the
Summer
fall.
2025.
And Mike, and depending, well, is that working in the long-term financing for it? Because I know we're not gonna use our fund balance on
No,
that for that.
no, but you
so-
could use a portion of it to pay for
Yes.
your ongoing engineering costs.
Yes, no,
You know, but
absolutely.
everything else.
And I think
yeah.
I think it's akin to us purchasing, Donahue, where we use some of our unallocated
Yep,
fund balance.
yep,
and we do the same thing
Yep,
here.
so, we budget, about $400,000 or $500,000 each year towards capital improvements in the
Mhm.
budget. So if you do go and bond some of this out, that 400,000 would just then be converted into a bond payment.
Yes. Yeah.
For infrastructure projects, they now allow 7-year bans.
Okay.
Typically, you're only allowed 5-year, but for infrastructure, you can go as far out as 7 years.
What would be the maximum we would get in some type of funding that we applied?
We applied for the whole amount, 2.3 million.
Which in the grand scheme of things is probably not a lot of money, right?
No. We'll see what they
Is that a
consider.
state
yeah.
pot?
It's a state DEC.
Is that the stormwater protection?
No,
that's
it's a dam. It's right through the DEC, specifically earmarked for dams. I think it might be part of the WIA projects.
Mhm.
And
What?
who advocates for this? Anybody?
What do you mean
Like
advocates? For
Who
the
writes
DEC
applies for the
funding?
grant?
Yeah,
Well, we did. The engineers put together
Okay.
the grant application, and we get letters of support from surrounding officials and whatnot.
Perfect.
Last year, they didn't have much response in terms of applicants because it's a new program. Last year was its first year, So we're hoping that we're in on the ground floor this year.
Great.
The engineers seem to think we have a good shot. I spoke to my liaison a week ago. He doesn't have any inside knowledge of it, from the DEC, except for it should be, the award should be announced by the end of this year.
That's what I was just about to ask.
Wow, end of the year.
By the end
That's
of this,
great.
oh, wow.
This year.
Yeah, we applied for this back August,
Oh,
July.
all right.
Man, that
Well,
was great.
Yeah.
We could say yes in this meeting, not vote on anything, and slow walk until we find out.
That's,
But
You
yeah,
could,
I-
but
no, no,
doesn't-
I
it doesn't
understand.
change the fact that it needs to be done.
Question just.
Well, the engineering's never gonna be bad. So
You know.
cost will change, but
Contextually, where does Sphagnum Dam is the most highest priority? It's the medium hazard
Mhm.
one, right? And it's out of the, are there 7 or 4?
5.
5.
So there's 2 of them that were rebuilt back in 2000, I believe, the Gibson Dam and the Arthur's Dam. You know, and if this is something where you rehabilitate this when you take out a 7-year ban, when you pay that off, maybe during that 7 years, you're planning for the next one.
Yeah. Yep. What is the next, so what
Yeah,
is the
what are
next
the
one
other-
up?
We'd have to take a look at either Tamarack,
Tamarack's got a different kind of dam, right?
yeah,
That's
Yeah.
a little different.
that one's probably the highest one up there and it's the most remote, or Alec. Alec is the second one.
Okay.
It's in pretty decent shape. The spillway needs a lot of work. You know,
Okay.
But definitely the Sphagnum is the
Yes.
number one, and
that
that's
is
the one we're keeping it at.
That is the one
lower
that we
capacity and-
keep it at lower
Does
capacity
a
because of the,
spillway generally fall or no? Doesn't,
which one?
what are you talking about?
Sphagnum does not because we
No,
keep,
I'm talking about,
Doesn't matter.
well, in good times they all flow. Like
Well,
right
we-
now they're probably flowing because we haven't been using any.
right.
Um,
Yeah, we're in the high 80s.
but they're not overflowing greatly.
But
because we
you
don't
can
have much
make
rain.
that, so if you were doing a spill repair though, you could drop the level.
Oh yeah. We have the capability to drop
Yeah.
it. Yep.
Well, you'll be dropping sphagnum, right?
Yeah.
A lot.
Oh yeah.
No,
So,
keep us
thank you.
surprised, Mike, yeah, that's good.
So that's the only thing I'm looking for next month or next week is to get the authorization to move forward with the design.
Okay,
Well, you'll get it.
thank you very much, Mike.
Okay.
All right, you're still up, Mike, how about the GIS map?
GIS mapping, do you guys have that? Maybe not. I do. Nope, it's not backwards.
I don't think we have that one, so I don't have that.
So it's time to move into the 21st century with some of our mapping, especially when you take into consideration the lead line inventory and making it available to residents online and whatnot. All of our mapping is basically hand drawn. There's no precision to it. You go out to look for a valve, as both Daves probably know. You're looking at valve cards that say that the valve is located 42 feet away from the 26-inch diameter ash tree that was cut down 60 years ago.
27 feet off the corner of the building.
Yeah.
No longer there.
So, in its time, it did well, but with the new technology, GISing, we can actually get it down to centimeter detail. I reached out to a couple companies to assist us. There's companies that do it. The one company offered to do it for about $60,000.
Whole system?
No, about a third of it.
Okay.
So in speaking with our staff, they feel as though it's something that we can do. I spoke with New Windsor IT. They're gonna help us set up the mapping with Esri, which is it's a national company. A lot of utilities use it. New Windsor uses it, and it's available on state contract. But the first step is purchasing this equipment, GIS equipment, so our guys can go out and actually do the mapping and gather the coordinates. There's 3 prices. The cheapest is $9,436 from LandLogix. And then the other 2 prices for the same equipment, it's all within about $500. So I'm just looking for authorization next week to purchase that equipment. And then hopefully shortly thereafter, we'll get the mapping up and running and we'll start this winter getting out
So
there.
Mike, this is step one,
Good
and then
time to
step
do it.
two, who's gonna train your personnel in regards to the?
Land Logics Group, they will actually do the training on the equipment. And they also
Okay.
work with Esri, so if we wanted them to give us a day or two of training on the Esri product, they could, or in the winter.
Are you gonna have
IT
what? What are you gonna, how are you gonna do this? A couple guys?
Yep, and once we get that done, the next step is to actually build, or put tablets in the vehicles. So they can, when they go out and locate for markouts and stuff, they can refer to it right on the
Laptops, like-
tablet.
In regards to this, Mike, is
We
this
had the
something
same
you
one
guys
you
would
got.
jump on right away? I'm just looking
It's not like the
with
laptops.
respect to
Oh, yeah.
Land Logic,
Mhm.
would they provide this training? How long?
Oh, they do it right away,
Okay, I mean, what's the, how
a couple
long?
days,
Okay,
yeah.
because I'm just thinking if you guys get involved in something else and they're like, oh, you only have 30, you have to use it
No,
within
no, no,
30
no,
days.
no.
Okay.
They've been very decent to deal with and speaking to them.
Okay.
So what's, the main, equipment here is actually the GPS
Yeah,
locators.
it's like
Yeah.
survey equipment,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
and
How
and
accurate are they?
2 centimeters.
But is
Wow.
this,
To a valve?
Yeah.
Holy cow, yeah, that's changed. It used to be 15 feet. When I started, it was.
And the nice thing about it in New York State,
So it's useless.
New York State has a system for the GIS
Crazy.
that is tied into the DOT facilities. And it doesn't actually cost us anything, so we don't have to buy a service subscription.
And it's coming off satellite, right?
so I'm sorry, is this, are they detecting the mains as well, or is it?
No,
They're
just the
marked out, they
locations.
know where the mains are.
So we go
from-
out, we know this is a valve in
We
the
use-
street, we put the GIS equipment on there,
and
it
tells
records,
satellite, goes
tells
in
the
the
satellite,
database,
gives
and it's-
GPS
But
coordinates, and it gets transferred onto a map.
But
Okay.
every time he doesn't, so, no, we own equipment or we rent?
We'll own it,
Okay, so every time he locates a main,
we can
And
go
he
out and
digs-
plot it.
he can plot that main, and eventually, it won't take that long, depending on how many leaks you'll have, you'll have everything.
When you say mapping, so this is a digital map.
Digital map, and
You'll
you
have
can,
mounted.
yeah, you'll be able to map it out or
Yeah.
print it
But
out.
you'll be able to pull it up
Kinda
on,
like
you'll be
a-
able to
yeah,
pull it
kinda
up
like-
on a tough
And,
book.
and the good, exactly,
That's the
and the
thing.
good thing about Esri is, if you remember back in 2020, when the county, during the pandemic, they would give their updates. And
What's Esri again?
it's a mapping program.
Okay.
So when you looked at the COVID pandemic, with the county updates, and you could click on, towns and everything.
Oh,
in your
yes,
stats,
yes.
That was Esri.
Oh,
All
right.
that information's built into it.
Got it.
So this
Like
would
you get
be,
your
this would be
outage map
points
snap
on the
from
map
Central Hudson.
to
Points-
start.
Points
Like
on
you
the
get-
map.
It wouldn't be lines on the map, it would be points
Like you
all
get-
No,
around.
it
But
would end up
eventually-
being lines.
You know how you get the outage? You
Well,
know-
you
Central
go
Hudson.
between the.
No, you know how you get the outage from Central Hudson, be similar to that.
Yeah,
Just
no,
like
I
that.
understand that, but in terms of the data that we'd be feeding in this initial setup
Yes.
is they're finding the
Points.
surface known
Initially, we
area
would draw a
things.
straight line between those points.
Right.
Until we got more accurate information.
Right, okay, so you definitely have like a scat,
Yep.
you'd know what was between what and what was
Yes.
between what, but
It's-
you wouldn't
it's-
necessarily know the exact route until you started
Correct.
doing,
Correct.
Maintenance and-
It's asset mapping.
Yeah.
You know.
but we own it.
We would own the
Provide-
equipment.
We'd have it.
We
Okay,
would have the
I get it.
subscription, and then you can set up different layers. So if Dave and his
Can it work
team
for
want,
sewer?
yes. If Dave wanted to go out and map out all the stormwater and sewer, you put it all on the same mapping hardware, software, and you can actually layer everything on there. If you get
Awesome.
Central Hudson signed, I guess.
Which was the one that was written on like a paper towel? Was that the sewer?
Everybody.
That was the
It's
sewer.
everybody's.
Everybody.
Yeah. So this is
We
the
got a
first
room
step.
full of books.
The
so-
sewer's in a book the size you have there.
Yeah, I remember you showed.
So Mike, this is the one that you recommend? I know
Yes.
it's only a few $100 difference
Yep.
between that.
Yep.
So, okay, all right.
I'm game for whichever one you recommend.
Yeah.
It sounds like a great idea.
Yes. All right, so why don't we do this one? That is good. Dave, I think you're up in regards to what we went through, an executive session. I don't know.
Well, we have 4 accounts that we're gonna look at for a couple of refunds for sewer credits. a refund for a sewer credit and, a couple garbage
Garbage
accounts that we
shutoffs,
have
yeah.
to, address.
Right, okay. Yeah, I don't think, we don't have to go into detail. We spoke about it in executive session. I think we're all in agreement with respect to them. None of them are,
I'll have it all in a form for next week's meeting, so it could be a simple
yeah,
resolution to take care of all four of them at one time.
okay.
There were some flavors in there that, I don't know that we were all in total.
Yeah,
So there might be a little revision based on this.
I think I know what everybody was looking for. I'm pretty sure.
yeah,
So I will put it together and circulate it between now and then.
okay, very good.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on then, let's go to the monthly department reports.
Moving right along.
Yeah,
Yes, we
funny
are.
how that happens.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
That's strange. I wonder,
All
I
right,
wonder why.
Is
Let's start
everything
off
right,
with-
Megan?
Yeah.
Is it all right? I mean,
All
counting
right.
on you.
Let's take a look at the treasurer's report.
Just a drink.
Megan, is there anything that you want to point out here? Any anomalies, anything that stands out that we need to know about that's different from,
Any other one?
yeah,
So, October was the last month that the village collected
Oh, that's
taxes.
right.
Okay.
Yes.
So unpaid taxes total $66,035.85. And that's been turned over to the Orange County Commission of Finance for collection.
How
What
does
was it,
that,
60? Is that on here?
66,
how does that fare? Do you know?
035.85.
You know how that fares in relationship to other years?
Oh, well.
That I would have to double check with the clerk
I'm
on.
just wondering.
Motion to adjourn?
All right.
Robert's rules of order.
All right.
It's always in order and doesn't require a second.
All
He
right.
must have heard me.
Where are you guys now?
Did
Did you do,
Yeah,
We did all that.
FYI,
Yeah.
FYI.
Ron,
did you do
FYI.
board reports?
We're doing this.
We're on FYI.
You can stay in there.
Megan's making a presentation.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Megan, you were saying that the unpaid,
66.
the unpaid taxes are about 66,000.
Yeah.
Okay, that's gonna be re-levied.
Yeah,
Okay. And when you have to get that out to the county, or you already did? or
we already did.
Okay,
The village clerk handled that, but
Okay.
I do have confirmation that that's been turned over.
okay.
Is that what we have to vote to re-levy, don't we, generally, or no? Or is that we do that annually for the stuff that was?
We do it annually. I don't
Yeah.
believe that's a vote. Is it? To re-levy? I don't think so.
I don't
remember.
No, I think it's law. I think you guys provide us with a list of the
Right,
Yes.
that's
re-levy
what we get for
properties.
us.
Yes.
The list
Yeah,
is
this
also in the
This
paper.
is already signed by the trustees, the unpaid village.
Okay,
Yes, that's what we did, okay,
Okay.
right. So we do have to do some acknowledgement that it's re-levied.
So that was the biggest, difference on this monthly report.
alright.
Everything else is basic.
Okay. And the night class are still doing pretty well.
We are doing really well with
Right.
my class, yeah,
That was a win, that was
even
Nice
with the
win.
interest rate
an
drop.
easy one. All right, any questions for Megan? No, okay.
How far down did you get on other business?
All of it done.
All of it's.
You got it all done?
We did.
No
We're
way.
efficient, yes, we did.
Now
Ron,
while I was
Ron,
at the run of my mouth? Really? All right.
Yeah.
You are much more efficient. Complete reports. You get paid by the word on TV. All right, so you got through everything down through sewer and garbage credits, and now we're up on treasure and we're moving to the building department.
Mr. Carmona.
All right,
Yes,
senor.
sir. Nothing additional, things are moving along, we slowing down maybe slightly on the building permit application coming in. But now the end of the year is coming in, so I'll be putting everything together, giving you the, year-end report that we submit to the state. I'll get that done in January. And with the additional hours that I'll be working now, once we get everything settled, then, the fire safety inspection I'm gonna pick up. So that has been a little bit lacking, and I really need to get on top of that, so maybe getting phone calls.
Manny, with your extra time, what day were you?
Right now, we're just doing one day until we finish going through the process with the county personnel My suggestion is that we canvass the list of all the inspectors that have taken the test and see if we can find someone qualified there to handle the position. If we don't, that should open up the list. I'll take the extra hours. And then when the test come up, I'll take the test because I have to be on the Orange County list as well in order to do more hours. I'll just take the test and I'll handle it all.
And what we talked about this morning is, as we go forward in trying to find another, code enforcement officer slash, building inspector, rather than doing what we've done in the past and hiring somebody that's got to be trained up by Manny, is securing the Orange County list, looking at that list, and then Manny says there's rules on how you have to do it. If you offer it to the first three and one of them does not, or if you interview the first three, one of them drops out, you're allowed to take from the entire list. Otherwise, you're restricted to taking one of the top three.
Correct. I mean, this is how it works in Rockland County. I'm not sure if it's the
No,
same
it's the
here.
same.
It might be the same, so.
Just so if we do this, we have somebody that has the necessary certifications again, so we're not going through the rigmarole of sending somebody to training and have them, bird dogging him for their first, 6 months trying to get up to speed. So until then, we would agree to.
So if they're on that list, they're fully trained.
Well, as Manny pointed out, they don't put what the certification's on there, but they're ranked, Manny. How do they rank them? Is it just whoever?
Whatever grade you get on the test.
So
be
it's
able to
just
take
the
the
test,
test,
you would
have to
imagine
show-
you'd have
no,
to
you have
some
to-
kind of aptitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not necessarily certified.
You have the certification,
Not
right?
necessarily.
Qualified.
Really, some of the time, for some of the tests, you can't take the test unless you have certain
But
qualifications.
you gotta have a background, yeah, the
Yeah,
background you
they'll
gotta
eliminate
have,
it.
but not the state certification,
Got it. Okay.
which takes almost a year to get.
Got it.
So we don't want that either.
So in the interim,
wait.
we would be using him more hours during the week so that to cover, as he pointed out, bringing somebody on right now that he's got to train is not going to help us in
Yeah.
productivity
It
because
has
he's
slowed
going to.
me down quite a bit for the last couple of people that we have had. In my program, it should have been at 100% by now and probably 60% where I really wanted to be. by
Okay.
now.
All right.
All right. Any questions for Manny on the building department? Nope. All right, moving on to the fire department. Michael, you're gonna handle that for the chief today, sir?
Sure.
So you've got something to report on this weekend.
Yeah, so we had a house fire up on 10 Stable Way, one of the larger homes up that way. It's in the non-hydranted section of the village. Came in initially as a smoke investigation on Storm King Mountain. We were later notified that it was an actual building fire. Chief Quinn arrived on scene, confirmed that it was a building fire. The fire and smoke was emanating from the building through the windows and the roof. Our initial crew did an outstanding job getting there, making the attack. As you all well know, we have a very young crew. They didn't hesitate. Our mutual aid partners, they got out very quickly. We were able to establish the positive water supply so that the initial crew did not lose any water supply whatsoever during their attack. And then the cause is still under investigation. I believe Manny was up there today and they were boarding it up
Yes.
and whatnot.
No injuries.
No injuries to civilians. We had 5 minor injuries to firefighters. 4 of them were treated on scene. 2 of them was dehydration. 2 had cut fingers. 1 was transported to the hospital for a foreign substance in their eye. They were treated and released. Everything went very well that incident. It's a 5,000 square foot home, 3 stories. I want to say maybe 10 to 15% of it sustained heavy fire damage. The rest was smoke and water. It's going to be an expensive proposition to repair, but I don't think they'll be tearing it down.
Yeah. It's an icon.
And
It's
it's
an
a lot of
iconic.
steel in there, right?
Yeah.
It's an
A lot of
iconic
steel.
building. And
Is it? Really?
The whole turret's.
Yeah.
And the good news is, well, one is that the owner was not there.
Yes.
Nobody was injured, and there were apparently 5 cats there. They were all down in the basement, and they were rescued, and none of them were injured, which
Yeah.
is huge.
So just a couple things. That house is about 1,500 feet from Mountain Road. We carry about 1,200 feet of hose supply line on our first due engine. So the second due engine from Cornwall picked that up. but that's where the pumper tanker that we ordered comes into
Yes.
play.
We were talking, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it carries 2,000 gallons of water compared to 750. Yeah, our tanker now carries 1,800, but only carries 2 men, 2 staff. So the new one will actually have a full complement of staffing as well as the 2,000 gallons.
How
of
many
water.
gallons did you go through, Mike?
I want to say I don't know. I don't know how many times the tanker's filled up, but maybe 15,000.
Okay.
You know.
Where'd they go full? The bottom of the hill?
The bottom of the hill
Yeah,
at Mountain Road
yes,
and
Okay.
the boulevard. And don't forget, it's a 4-inch water line, so you're basically laying a 4-inch water main on the ground, and you have to fill that up 1,500 feet before the fireman
Yeah.
gets water.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of water in that pipe.
And as the chief came to see me this morning and as we talked as a board about purchasing that backup, Mike, what is it, an
The
engine?
engine, yes.
For $60,000 from Long Island, it is beyond a necessity now, as if anything had gone wrong with this vehicle, which, you know, again, is
Mhm.
in the obsolete stages because of the age of it and everything, we'd be in a bad way at that time. So obviously it's important. And right now, I spoke to Judge McKay today. Council is reviewing the contract. Mike, I didn't tell you and Charlie this, but he said he wanted to add a couple things on. He'd get us something back tomorrow. We need to do this sooner as opposed to later.
Yeah.
So.
And then the new aerial device that we're looking at, the one that we have, it got up there, but it's too large for what we were using it for. The new one would be, it's about 6 feet shorter, which makes all the difference in the world when you're talking tight roads like that on the side of a hillside and cliffside.
All right. Any
Thanks,
questions
everybody,
for
for that.
the assistant chief
Yeah.
on that? Nope. Okay.
Just the mutual aid calls, and, I mean, we can go through this in the
Mhm.
business meeting, I guess, but, is that 6, is that an unusual amount? Or, I mean, obviously there were some very significant incidents, the Greenwood Lake Fire.
Yeah. I mean, that added to it, but just today we went mutual aid to Woodbury for a house fire with our tanker.
Mhm.
We kind of paid them back because they were here on Saturday. But as in talking to Mary Jane Pitt from the local, she wanted the press release for the fire. She goes, I see this more and more that you guys are relying on each other more and more. And it's true,
Yeah.
as volunteerism is declining, you have to reach out to surrounding departments that used to be very well staffed, that you could rely getting 2 or 3 pieces of apparatus from during the day. You're just not.
I saw that in the
Stuff.
calls that were
Stuff.
listed online, that
Yeah,
one of them
even
couldn't crew it.
even
Crew a
Saturday,
truck.
there was a couple departments that were requested to stand by for us. And 1 or 2 of them couldn't crew because they were already on scene. We ended up with the city of Newburgh standing by for a couple hours, which was nice because we go up there quite a bit as well.
Thanks.
All right. Anything else, Michael?
Nope.
All right, Chief Dixon, any highlights for the board off of your report?
Nothing really, just, when I talked about the grant, the previous one, and then we were awarded it, this month, the Edward Byrne grant, JAG grant for $5,000. This could be another defibrillator we're gonna get and another speed sign.
Excellent. I actually spoke to Edward Byrne's brother, who was my first partner in the FBI, and said it was kind of full circle to see that, his brother, the story of him was executed in a police car watching a witness this is at the height of the crack wars in the late 80s. He was sitting outside a Guyanese immigrant's house. He had called in Jamaica, Queens. He had called and reported that there were, crack dealers on his corner, and they decided to go after this guy because he was a witness. So the NYPD assigned Eddie Byrne, who was a young 20-year-old rookie cop, to sit the overnight shift, the A line, outside the drug witness's house. And Pappy Mason, who was this Jamaican drug lord, sent a bunch of his underlings out to kill a cop. And this guy was sitting in a car. It was like 2:00 in the morning, and they executed him in the car. So that's Eddie Byrne. So that's the impetus behind this. So it was nice, full circle. Talked to his family and said that it's helping our police department out with this grant money. Chief, anything else on there?
That's about it, sir.
All right. Police Officer Bunt is doing okay at the Orange County Sheriff's Office, and
Yes, no
No incidents?
No bumps in the road.
I talked to him the other day, good.
We
All
should
right,
publicize this number, traffic enforcement posts, I assume driven partly by 218, 50?
Correct.
50? That seems like the highest number I've seen on that box, since I've been on the board.
yeah, that is something that, that we are focused on right now, is just ensuring that, people coming off the mountain aren't speeding.
I will say that in comparison with prior years, it has been quieter
Much
in the neighborhoods down
Good.
the end of town from the types of engines and rallies that often come through.
We're also
high
getting
speed.
into the cooler season. We're
Sure.
getting out of the when, when they're normally
Yeah.
I
driving.
heard it for a couple of weeks, but it wasn't as. I mean,
Good.
prior
And
to
on
all
the
the
other
right
end, because I take the road
Bikers
when I
are
come
going
back,
away.
and I'm at Fort Montgomery and Rhode Island, and, it's quiet there too.
Yeah,
It has not been bad.
yeah, good.
Oh, and I mean, it's not directly related, but we got the email from the State Highway Department today. They're done with the work for this season now.
Oh,
They've stopped,
good.
and they're gonna pick it up again in the spring as discussed.
Yeah, that
So
will,
9W is
that'll relieve some of the
Currently-
one
Oh, my
lane.
God.
Yeah. Okay, David, DPW.
Most important thing is Partridge Road, working on that. I
Yeah.
hope to have, I don't have it yet. I'm hoping to have
Park
the
Road is the bridge that's.
specs.
Yeah,
But,
that's
Helping out.
the engineer agreed with me and we were able to, go the, I don't wanna say cheaper, but the less expensive route. We're doing
Yeah,
that.
what's
So
that thing called again?
it's a slip line.
slip lining,
Yeah.
we're basically doing the same thing with different material,
Okay.
stuff that's readily available in the area.
Got
So we should be able, hopefully be able to have that done in the next month or so.
Still retaining the picturesque stone character of the original bridge. Is that
The
correct?
original
Picturesque
stone
stone,
character will stay,
Yeah, that is nice. It is.
Yeah, no.
So,
and I'm hoping, don't hold me to this, but I'm hoping to be about half the cost of what we originally expected.
and we think that bridge is over 100 years, or
Yeah,
at least
well.
at least a century
Dave would
old.
know.
Yeah, so. No, that's not appropriate. All right, water
Did you
department.
bring the
Sounds
boss
good to me.
over?
Sorry, Dave.
Michael, water.
Before me. Look,
So the water leak today, the guys were up there, they told me it was
Yep.
out there at Shamrock, and we had a leak and they detected where it was.
Yep, so we noticed that our monthly production for the month of November was up by about 130,000 gallons from where it was last year. And looking at our SCADA system, we noticed that the wells were not shutting down as we would expect them for this time of the year. So we went out looking for leaks. We were able to find one. Actually, I heard it while I was walking past on Main Street. The catch basin there was running with water. The guys went out today and they went up there and they listened on it. And what was happening is the water's actually going into the basement of the Shamrock Tavern. Their sub pump is pumping it back out. So we're going up there tomorrow to fix that. That's the old 1895 10-inch water main. So
how about their
hopefully-
service? Their service is okay?
the service is right there. So we're not sure if it's the connection or the main, because it's in that same, within 3 feet of that service line. So we'll get that taken care of tomorrow.
Find out if it's like.
Yeah. The other thing that I failed to mention earlier, well, I should now at least, the lead service line letters went out. We've gotten calls from residents asking about getting their water tested, as that's part of the notification letter. There is no free lead water testing for residents that the state does. I checked with the state. If a resident goes and gets their water tested, it's about $50 for the test. If we do it, it's $21.50. If it's something the village would like to offer to the residents, we can. For instance, if everybody asked for it, you're talking about $30,000. I don't think you're gonna have that many people
You're
asking for
testing
it.
the water out of the tap?
Yeah,
So who determines if it's a service or the solder in the house?
we don't. We just determine if there's lead in the water.
So the question is, now this would be out of the water system.
Mhm.
Does the village board, as the water authority, concur that this is an expense that should be borne out of the water system as opposed to charging residents for it. Mike said it's about $30,000.
And that's only if everybody were to ask, you know.
And we would make it, if we were to say yes, it is, it would have to be requested
You
by
know,
the business owner or the resident.
Yeah.
or the
And
resident.
the other option is we could still do the test ourselves, and the village could be billed, and we could back bill the resident on their water bill.
For 21 bucks.
And we'd be saving them about $30.
So to Dave's point, I think there's two separate issues, which is we'd be testing to know if there's lead in the water,
Mhm.
but it wouldn't solve the question of the lead service line. But we are doing an inventory over time
Yep.
to
Oh,
get
yeah,
up
no,
to speed on that.
We know this.
So over 4 years or whatever, we should reduce that, or is it less than that?
Well, we have
We
up
have like
to
2,500.
we have
unknowns or whatever.
1,600 unknowns.
Okay.
And now we're at a point where we have to dive deeper into the historical records, which is very time consuming, or we have to start doing excavations, which again is very costly and time consuming. So that's the point where we're at.
So that'll take time either way.
And you have 10 years.
Right. Okay. So
So in
To
your,
remove any lead service lines. Out of the approximately 900 that we've inventoried, we haven't found any lead.
right.
And as I've mentioned before, in my 30 some odd years working here, I've never come across a lead service.
So spending 30,000.
That's if everybody
Yeah,
requests.
right. I'm just saying,
Allocating 30,000. kind of.
Well, if you spend 30,000, allocate whatever way you want to say it. What I'm thinking though is because of that, you can protect. I'm just drawing the conclusion. All right, say 100 of them come up with lead.
We cannot use testing to determine whether it's a lead service line or not, because
So-
we add a chemical to the water that
Mhm.
prevents us from using that method.
So it doesn't help us out in regard at all. Okay.
No.
But if it shows lead, that's an indicator we could check the service line.
Well, we have to
that's-
check that
that's what I
anyway,
was-
but as David alluded to, there could be lead solder, which prior to 1986, copper pipes were all soldered together with lead solder.
Yeah.
You know, so,
most of the houses in Cornwall.
you know,
Right.
because our code after 1967 required copper. So from 67 to 86, there was lead solder.
Yeah.
But that,
So-
of course, doesn't always mean there's lead
If
in the
you-
water based on the
if you do
composition
a-
and the
And we
heat
and we
all of
do
those.
test homes every 3 years for lead. And we never reach the action level.
Right, you randomly test.
No, there's a specific era of homes,
Oh,
like
I
the
see.
ones built
Gotcha.
during the 80s.
Gotcha.
So the question is, are we, as the water authority, are we okay with covering the costs of individual consumers that request that we test their water? Or do we give them a break on the pricing of
You
it?
give them $21.
I'd say see what the demand is.
Yeah, and I'll be
But
honest.
we have to put it out there as hey,
Yeah,
this is
like-
what we're doing.
Emphasize it.
Well,
Right.
yeah, I would suggest that if people call, we will perform the test and they pay the $21 and we back bill them on their bill.
Exactly.
You know, because we're providing the personnel. It's a shared, you know, they
So
got
it
a
would
dog
be-
in the fight.
So it would be a savings for them of
$30. to
$30
test,
bucks.
And
and-
we're
okay.
doing it.
I think that makes sense.
And it's their service line from the valve to the house, right? It's not our municipally owned supply. Correct? I mean, that's,
No, they're taking it out of your,
I'm sorry, we're testing the water for their
Yes.
house. But the expectation is that any lead detected
It would be from the shut-off
Correct.
valve
yeah,
to
it's
their.
not from our
to their
municipal
tap.
It's
water
not from our
supply,
mains.
it's from the
We have
service
all
lines.
ductile iron.
Those are
gas water
individual
mains.
home, owners and homeowners.
so does anything trigger a surveillance for a lead service?
What do you mean?
How do you know how many lead services, if there's any lead services, just by the random work that we do?
How do we know?
Yeah.
We don't
find
know.
Right, but when you,
When we find them, they have to be removed.
right.
So
Well,
there is a formula that you can go out into a neighborhood. Say we went up into the Weeks Estate,
Right,
and rather than digging up every service line, we could dig up. It's called predictive modeling.
right.
We dig up a certain number of them, and based on the outcome of them, we can say, okay, this whole area is
Yeah, in your
non-lead.
years, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
What else, Michael?
And just I think next week I'm gonna have a resolution for you to surplus some equipment.
Excellent. Okay. Any other questions for the water soup? Nope. All right, moving on, it would be New Windsor EMS. You can, take a look at the report here. The chief is not here, but I know they've been busy. Obviously, the number we all care about is the coverage, and they are still at 100%. I think it's probably important to note too, because I know that I laud New Windsor EMS and Cornwall EMS all the time, but our Storm King engine number 2 also has a 100% response rate as well. And I don't think we ever mention that because we just take it for granted that that's what they do. But that's a big kudo that they don't miss calls. So, and you see the response times on there. So, you know, nothing. I mean, this is basic stuff. Okay. All right. Moving on to that's that. Okay. If we covered everything, and Chief, maybe I'll wait on the e-bike stuff and have you brief that at the board meeting next week, okay? I'd ask the chief to take a look at what our policy is, because obviously New York State motor vehicle rules apply in regards to e-bikes, because there's only a couple of them in the village. But I had
More than a couple.
I've only seen a couple, is what I'm saying, but I'm sure you're right, there's more than a couple. But I had a gentleman stop in and ask me if he should get one or if there was any, you know, provisions against it or anything you need to worry about or this, that, or the other. So I asked the chief to look into that and do a deep dive in that. I mean, I'm assuming it's just like regular bikes, you know, motor vehicle rules apply. They have a right to the road as much as motorized vehicles do, but obviously the e-bikes, they're not motorcycles and they're not, you know, pedal bikes. They are pedal bikes, but they have the battery on them. So anyway, we'll talk about the
Go
next.
30 miles an hour.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Another thing is, I have asked Trustee Brain to be our point of contact. Senator Scoofus' office had reached out in regards to LED lights. I know the town had done a project on this a number of years ago. I've been given some pitches. Bill, I want to make sure that you have what I have. I'm going in, I forget when this meeting is. It's, I'd have to look it up. But anyway, in regards to LED lights, I think it's something that the board should look at. It's not a quick turnaround on it, and there's a lot of things to consider. Dave, as you pointed out before, we don't, how does that work again? We don't own the lights themselves?
No, you own the lights, you don't own the pole.
Oh, you don't own the poles?
Right.
Okay.
So if a pole gets knocked down, Central Hudson's gonna come, put the pole back up. They're not touching the light. It's gonna
Yeah.
lay on the ground.
I got you.
It's on the
That's
19th.
if we.
On the
purchase
19th,
lights.
okay.
Right.
All right, for your information, our village board meeting is regularly scheduled. There will be a 6 o'clock attorney-client session, so board members, please make a note of that. The meeting's at 7 o'clock, back in the boardroom. We now have 2 microphones, so I can separate the cool kids in the back. They won't be sitting in an L anymore. They'll be sitting in 2 separate tables, and they will both have microphones on them. The purpose for that is so that Doris, who will be manning command central and pivoting the camera, which now goes all the way to the back of the room, we can put the department heads on camera and have a microphone that handles both sides.
Keep switching seats.
Okay, throughout December, I think it starts next week. Cornwall and Hudson Special Events Committee, I think they're the ones that are handling the story hour that Elizabeth has set up. A number of people have signed up for that. If you're interested in reading a book in the Santa's chair at the vestibule of Storm King
What if you
Lounge,
just wanna listen?
you're more than welcome to come. I'm not telling you what day I'm scheduled,
I
but you
saw it,
can.
what
No
day you're
heckling.
I already saw.
You're
what
not
it
allowed
is.
to heckle. And then December 24th, Christmas Eve, December 25th, obviously our employees are off. Village Hall will be closed those days as well, the 24th and the 25th. And the menorah lighting, interestingly enough, Hanukkah and Christmas are on the same day this year. They're both scheduled for December 25th. This is the first year that our Susie Armis is not going to be running it, I think, in like 11 years. But Julia Dahl, who is Susie's neighbor, has stepped up and she is going to be handling that. It is at 5 o'clock. I know some erroneous information went out suggesting it's at 5:30, but it is at 5 o'clock. It's about a half an hour ceremony. If you've never been to one, it's cool to attend it. It's fun and it's neat. So this will be, I guess, the third night of Hanukkah, since it's the 27th and the first night is obviously the 25th. Okay, that's all I have. Any alibis
Yes.
on board? Yes. Oh, go ahead.
Garbage and recycling pickup for Christmas, with the holiday being where they are.
What day is Christmas Eve and what day is Christmas?
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Tuesday, Wednesday. So
So,
recycling won't happen.
no, what we're going to do is we're going to pick up recycling on Monday
Right.
and
You
garbage.
cleared this through the
Yeah,
recycling
did you-
liaison?
I have to have that meeting with you.
I forgot we did this. It's already been posted on the village website
Oh,
since
well.
January of last year.
Oh, well, there you go.
Right after you had
That's
your committee.
Right after we had our
That's
committee
when-
meeting.
that's
but
when the team voted.
We're gonna bring it up at the board meeting, obviously, we'll mention it again for people that are listening. And we'll do a code red message to probably the Friday
So
before.
you're picking it up on the 23rd?
We'll be picking up recycling. We're not gonna have enough manpower or stuff to do it on
Dave,
Thursday,
can
do
you-
garbage, and because you're gonna have double
23rd.
garbage pickup on Thursday and Friday, both weeks.
Got it.
On the holidays, which is a big number, and
Yeah.
recycling for
Yeah.
Christmas and New Year's is a big number, so we're gonna have to do the recycling on Monday.
Can you remind me on the 16th, next Monday, so that we brief that out and maybe we put out another reminder to everybody that that's what the deal is?
We'll-
Okay.
We'll post it on social media, and we'll do a code red message to
Yeah, code
residents in the village.
There you go.
We got free ones coming, don't we?
So we'll do that.
Yeah.
It'll probably be
do it.
confusing for people because
Yes.
nobody's gonna be used to putting out recycling that early in the week.
The only, that's what I'm saying.
Kane and my wife.
That's right.
They're
But
probably
we,
used to it.
but if we do it on the 16th,
My wife
that is a
says-
little over a week in advance, and that's good. Because right now, people are gonna get, I just want them to stay on schedule until we get
Yeah,
closer.
so that's, just wanted to bring that up.
All right. Any other alibis from trustees or from department heads? None? All right, without further ado, make a motion to end the meeting. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good job.
Dave, can you hit the end stream there? You gotta hit, yeah, good. Are we out? All right, so I will be down for CBS is set.
By the way,
First
Jim,
time in 4 years.
I thought-
Tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock.
Jim,
I
by
was
the
out
way.
there and there, and I
they
get a
canceled.
call from one of the old producers, says, dude, you're back on TV? Can you come on tomorrow morning? I'm like, sure, like what time? He says, we'd like to have you